Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 4, Episode 24. I am your host, Alejandro, and with no one this time. Just full disclosure, this is my second version recording this week's episode of the X Button because the first one was gonna have a special guest in my friend PJ, aka JOK. And what I ended up doing originally was like I recorded kind of like the beginning and the end of that show, and I was gonna insert a lot of I was gonna record with PJ because the Nintendo Direct happened this week, and I kind of wanted to have him on because he's a big Nintendo fan, and I kind of love talking things about Nintendo, specifically this specific Direct. But while I had delayed some of the recording as I was waiting for him, he actually fell ill. So because a lot of the episode had a lot of references of him upcoming, and then of whatever we may or may have not talked, kind of like in the postscript, I was like, you know what? I'll just re-record this episode. So this is the episode you're gonna get just by myself. I'm sorry for the delay. This has been kind of like a weird summer, especially after Paul left, where schedules have just not been lining up. Like with some guests, sometimes they come in, sometimes they don't. I've been having kind of like weeks where I was sick, and I was recording later. Even though I had made the switch to post the show on Thursdays, I'm feeling like a Thursday recording for Friday posting is seeming more and more doable for me based on like where life is currently at with like my personal job and all that. So I'll kind of keep an eye on how like my schedule keeps on going for the next few weeks before I make the decision of reposting the show again on Fridays instead of like Thursdays. But I still kind of want to keep trying Thursdays, even though this episode is gonna come out like late on Friday, because I'm like recording it super early in this morning because I was kind of still waiting on PJ, but he just couldn't make it. But yeah, that's you do what you have to do sometimes. So this is just a reminder that this is the X Bottom Podcast, or gaming podcast that posts every Thursdays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing. Available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. So what's funny is that the previous version of this episode that I recorded, I had not played Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. I am now recording this after having spent like 3 or 4 hours last night playing Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, so at least I can give some early impressions about that DLC before going in to talk about like the Nintendo Direct that happened this Tuesday. And if you loved Elden Ring like I did, and a lot of people in the internet did, Shadow of the Erdtree is absolutely more Elden Ring, and it's a piece of content that defies understanding as a DLC. And how was Hidetaka Miyazaki and From Software, how are they able to do literally in a year and change of time, especially when they were also kind of had Armored Core 6 in the side when they were working on that game? How were they able to create a DLC that's so gargantuan in scope and size and secrets and details that this could have easily been a full sequel? Like even though Miyazaki was mentioning, oh yeah, this is a 25% of what Elden Ring was. It's kind of like the size of the Limgrave area, which is kind of like the introductory area of Elden Ring. When you look at that map, it's like, no, this is actually bigger than Limgrave, and on top of that, it's a map that has layers on top of layers, even more layers than like the original layered map of the OG game. That I'm like, where do they have the time and like the stamina? Let's just put it that way, to be able to do something so impressive in scope that it just makes everything else around it just feels like so tame in comparison. And yes, other games may look better in fidelity, but it's like the size and the artistry and display still makes what Elden Ring does just something just much more impressive for me, especially considering this is still something that is running on last generation hardware. So it's like I was able to kind of like go through some of the early areas. I was like meticulously going through like some corners, trying to beat some of the rank and files. I did read a couple tips and tricks articles that popped up the day before the DLC came out, just to kind of have an idea of what to keep, like what to look forward to. Because like, if you ever play a Souls game, it's like sometimes you're kind of left on your own leash and you don't know what you may or may not be looking for. You may be missing something important. And I got an idea of like what the upgrade loop is supposed to be for Shadow of the Erdtree, which has like a very specific currency that increases your stats for like your steed and your summon, and there's another currency that then increases your base stats of your character. I found more of the steed stuff than I have done my own stuff, and it's not just enough for you to just level your character using the normal like currency, the equivalent of the Blood Echoes of Bloodborne. If you play that, kind of like the runes. I remember now the name. I came into this as a new game plus one character. It's a 201 level Bloodhound Fang wearing dual wielding monster, and I would say like I am finding that I'm able to like kill the majority of like rank and file enemies, no problem. But there's so many enemies here that if you don't have high vigor enough, they're gonna one or two shot you. It's insane. There's like this place called the Berulta, I think it's called. It's like a castle that, from what I was reading around, this was actually the area that From Software took to demo the expansion over at Summer Games Fest. That ended with like this insane boss battle against this like cat lion monstrosity that uses lightning and has like different faces. That is like, it's just, if I didn't have my Mimic tier, I barely was able to get it in one try. And yes, obviously, yeah, I'm using summons. Screw you. Like, it's in the game. I'm using what the tools that are given in the game. This Mimic tier is absolutely going to help me a lot with a lot of these enemies, because like you can't pop the Mimic tier almost everywhere, and there's so many rank and file, especially in Berulta. There's like this huge knights that have like one has like double swords, one has like a great sword, that are so hard to break their pose, and they'll just melt your health if you're not like careful. I was able to kind of get into the flow of when to dash the first one you find, which is like the double sword one. That's like close to a resting spot, thank God. And eventually, like I was able to beat him without getting hit after like a couple tries, because some of those movements were complete BS. But then there's one later in that same map that is like the one with the great sword, and has like this flash like super dashes on top of like his strikes that for my character it was just not working. And I was doing dual wielding. I had to like pull up a shield to see if I could get away with like doing the block and do the counter stance parry, which is like hold your shield button and then press the right trigger whenever you get hit, to see if I could try to get some hits in based on like how insane his movements were. This is like, and this is just the beginning area, and from like what I read around in some of the reviews, which by the way you can go check, this is like the, once again, From Software delivers the highest rated game of the year, even though this is DLC. I know there's gonna be a lot of scuttlebutt about probably giving this game of the year nods because of just how impressive it can be, and it's like just way meatier than many games that are full price. But I was reading that this DLC just keeps getting harder and harder and harder, and as someone that broke through with Elden Ring, like through with Souls-like, because before that, Bloodborne was the only one that I was able to kind of push myself through, and still not quite getting it, and Elden Ring was the one where everything just clicked in my place, and I was able to just find a way to beat the majority of this game before the Elden Beast just completely curb stomped me right at the end, and that like jilted my love, made me like a jilted lover for this game, where it was like I was so angry at that final boss fight that I didn't want to give Elden Ring at the time its flowers, as like this was the game of the year. And then if you all remember, I gave God of War Ragnarok my game of the year that year, and then like over time I've been like thinking more about Elden Ring than I've been at Ragnarok, and being like, oh man, yeah, no, it's what Elden Ring did was actually really special. I'm thinking more about this game than I do Ragnarok. That I wonder how many Elden Beasts like insanity boss fights I'm gonna face, because it's like just this lion alone was like, I don't know how I was able to beat it in one try. Obviously, I thank my Mimic tier and the fact that I found so many Sacred Ash tiers that supposedly are the things that buffed my summons and my steed. So that probably helped the Mimic tier like withstand so many of the insane attacks that were so insane that they were even tanking my frame rate in a way that I was like, dang, it's like this is wildly unstable compared to how relatively stable Elden Ring was for me at launch. But they're like playing with particle effects and size like in insane ways. That I've been hearing some insane stuff about the final boss of this DLC. The Washington Post's Gene Park, he said that it took him 3 to 4 days to beat. If I was losing my mind with trying to beat the Elden Beast for like 4 hours straight, and that like really like tilted me to no end, gosh. And they were like, from like, Gene Park's a great Souls player, like he's played a lot of these. I am just curious. I'm wondering if I'm able to like stick through the entire DLC, considering like I bounced off so hard of the Bloodborne DLC. I tried the Astoria's DLC for Dark Souls 1, and that completely just obliterated me also. So I'm like, I had never really beaten a From Software DLC, but there's also something alluring about the flexibility of Elden Ring that makes me want to keep pushing, and it's also just such an alluring game to just keep playing that I definitely want to give it a good old college try, because thankfully it's releasing at a time compared to last summer where not many new games are coming out, but this has been an amazing summer for DLCs. Obviously we got the final shape 2 weeks ago, which was excellent. Now this is out. I didn't even mention it. I briefly mentioned it in the episode I recorded with Eric last week, that I played the Alan Wake DLC that was like 2.5 hours long, and that was delightful. Obviously Dawn Trail for Final Fantasy XIV is coming soon. If you pre-order, you can play it next week. I'm not gonna play Dawn Trail immediately because there's no way to just immediately jump into an expansion. I haven't played any of the previous expansions, even though I own them all. I'm still stuck in A Realm Reborn, so I will have to live vivaciously through the fans that are caught up in the game and hear what Dawn Trail is compared to how excellent they tell me Endwalker was 3 years ago. That at least we're being fed quite a lot with like content for games that were delightful a year or two ago. And on top of already this being this has been a great year for me already. I have already said it, that it's been I've been more fed than I was expecting, and we have so many games now coming like for the rest of this year from like at least 2 of the 3 major publishers. No, actually no, screw that. It's like at least from like the 3 major publishers, everyone's like releasing stuff. There's like a really packed year. Obviously 2023 was the tentpole year. A lot of like old franchises getting new entries makes it all momentous that they were all kind of packed together and all releasing new entries in the exact same year. So 2023 obviously felt like it had more impact, but it's like that doesn't negate like the power of 2024 if you're willing to be open-minded and try what they're giving to you. Like if you're not just so like dead set on liking a specific kind of game, like wow, what a year this has been. And then on top of that, getting new content for games that were beloved a few years, like just a few years ago, even just last year, there is like barely any complaint for me coming. And so I cannot wait to play more of Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Like already yesterday when I was playing, I was almost gonna go to bed and I just wanted to keep playing, and I'm like, god damn it. I remember how much my sleeping schedule got ruined by when I was at the very highs of Elden Ring for all those times. And obviously I had a similar loose sleep game earlier this year with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So the fact that I get 2 of those in the same year, and Elden Ring already kind of like a known commodity after that game did that to me 2 years ago, is like, it feels good to be back despite like being curb stomped, and I want to see how much I last. And I'm also not gonna like be vivacious about not looking for help and all that. That finally learned that playing a Souls game means that you're gonna have to go online and ask for help. As Jim put it in the recent tweets, like part of this Souls experience is the community experience. It's not just about you trying to figure stuff out on your own. If you're able to, more power to you, but it's like From Software doesn't begrudge you looking for help. In fact, like even Miyazaki told IGN that he doesn't mind people using guides to play his games. So it's like and even for the people that nudge at the players are like, oh, you're only beating stuff because you're using summons. I'm like, go fuck yourself, because it's like that they're giving you those tools. I'm gonna use the tools that are given to me. So if Miyazaki didn't want to have those helps in the game, they wouldn't be in the game. He put them in a reason, and dare I say, a lot of these boss fights are kind of like designed for you to have a summon in mind, because it's like that's like the only way you can, like for this lion in particular that I fought, is like without a mimic tier or any other summon you could have, is like you need to hit him in the back and you need something to distract them. So anyone that's able to beat that monster without having to push summons, like more power to you. You're like a god tier. I'm not that kind of player. I just want to have fun myself, and Mimic tier is definitely helping me. So definitely find a way to make the experience easier for you. Like everyone has everyone like now it has been completely disproven with the amazing success of Elden Ring that recently confirmed had 25 million souls, which is insane for a game of this caliber. And the kind of game it is that conventional wisdom would tell you that it's so inaccessible, but it's clearly that is just inaccessible for people not willing to understand the game and understand that the game gives you the tools to make the game as accessible as you may want it to be. And I'm glad that I was able to finally kind of get into the mindset and only realizing that the only inaccessible game that From Software has made in the modern era is Sekiro, because Sekiro is the most get good of all these games. The rest of the games allow you to have the tools, if you're willing to like look them up, to make the game as easy as you want or as hard as you want. They're not as like impossibly hard as like the legends in the internet will let you know. So yeah, can't wait to play more. And then other stuff that I have been playing before this, like I mentioned in the previous recording of this version of the podcast that I've been trying to still play Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and to me, I feel next to Dragon's Dogma 2 and Hellblade 2, this may be one of my most disappointing games of this year. In that to me, it's like with Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door in particular, it's like I hold the GameCube version in such high regard, and then technically this game is still a lot of like what was great about the GameCube version is still here, but I'm distressed that it doesn't keep me engaged. I'm distressed how much like I get bored so quickly when I'm playing it, that I'm like, am I just really not in the mood for this, or did I memory hold this game in such a specific way that it hit me in 2004 that it doesn't hit me the same way 20 years later? That this was one that I had said that maybe I was gonna review over at Season Gaming, and I just had no desire to keep on going. And we don't review stuff there if we don't finish it. And obviously I mentioned Dragon's Dogma 2. Like that's the most disappointing in the when compared to the amount of hype I had going into that one, kind of like all the pre-release hype that called it like the next Elden Ring and all of that. And then when I played it, I was like, there's way more jank here. This is like not as refined as I wanted it to, and I just kind of got bored of it. And then obviously Hellblade 2, like such a amazing technical showcase, but it's such a weak game in comparison. Oh, like all things considered. So it's like I'm still gonna keep trying with Paper Mario right now. Like I don't know if I'll keep trying now that Elden Ring's out, but it's like to me it's like, man, most of the GameCube games that I have wanted to come forward have held up better than I thought. Kind of like how Metroid Prime Remastered, how it was such an excellent time. Be like, gosh, this holds up just as great as I remember it holding up, and it's even better. So I thought I was gonna feel the same way about Paper Mario, and I'm like, oh man, so that already kind of puts me at a razor's edge when Wind Waker actually, whenever that happens. It's still kind of like a copium thing for me, that maybe they're just not waiting for the Switch 2 to pull those releases now, because like it's insane that Nintendo just continues to release almost the majority of the games on the Switch, and there's still one or two key games missing for many of their franchises. But maybe like when Wind Waker comes out, maybe it may not hold up like as well as I thought it would. So I'm kind of like, it's reframed my mind a little bit about wanting a lot of these old games to come back. I'm glad Paper Mario, regardless, it's like it's come back. It obviously reviewed well, and a lot of people that played it for the first time did like it. To me, it's just that I was just more distressed of the fact that I was chomping at the bit for it. I was like, I'm so excited. It's like I have such great memories playing this with my sister and my brother. I had friends in the neighborhood that I lived that were also playing, so I would go to their houses and we would like play together and solve stuff together and all that. So it's like I have such great memories of it that it's just sad that it's not living up to those memories for me. Even though there's still a lot of like charm in that game, that I still say that to me it's like a fever dream of a game. How like just wild some of the writing is, but it just like after 30 minutes I just kind of want to go play something else. That to me just tells that to me is disappointing. So. And I also continued my platinum runs for the Final Fantasy games on PS5. I finally was able to platinum Final Fantasy 16. It made me love that game even more than I did. Like, I made me appreciate the story even more. And now, like, I am firmly of the mind that that is a top 5 Final Fantasy game for me. Maybe even top 3. Even probably from a story perspective, just like Rival 6 and 4. For me, it's just like a specifically just an emotional resonance. Like the way the game wrecked me a year ago when I was playing it for review. Like I was expecting going into the final parts of 16 again in the Final Fantasy mode. Like I was gonna be emotionally prepared this time, and I still wasn't. I was still like left in a stupor when I beat it. It's like just an emotional wreck. That dare I say, like if someone wants to make the argument that the 16 story is better than the 7 remake and Rebirth story, I would agree with that. I still feel the remake and Rebirth project, like from a gameplay perspective and design perspective and everything that's around that game, is still like stronger overall. I feel like story wise, like I'm now feeling a little bit, now that I've been removed a little bit more from Rebirth, I am feeling the I'm feeling the kind of like mid children syndrome of story still has to be completed. That holds the main story that thing back to me, but I still hold that the character driven sections of that game, that everything that focused on the characters of Cloud, Tifa, and all of that was like so unbelievably strong that's what carried that game. But obviously, it's like that's the thing that carried. Whereas 16 manages a better balance, focusing on character while having like a grander than a grander life nature to its narrative that kind of like comes together beautifully at the end. So I'm glad that I love both. I love both Final Fantasy games. Like I know that a lot of people love pitting the 7 remake project against 16, kind of like what one you just want to put the other. And I'm like, no, I'm not that guy. I'm like, I like both of them for their own reasons. I feel they're both special games, and Platinum in 16 reminded me of that. I've also been trying to platinum Final Fantasy 7 remake, and I tell you, people, that the platinums for the 7 remake projects are no joke. I already know that the Rebirth platinum is just insane. It's insane. I watched some streamers achieve it in a way that I was like, that's just like luck of the draw. I don't know if I was gonna be able to do that, but I know there's like better guides now that will help with that. It's just having to grant a lot of the material and all that. And with remake platinum in particular, I had whatchamacallit, I had a little bit of a snafu where one of the last trophies that I need to complete like some VR challenges. Yes, Rebirth also has those that unlock after you beat the game when you go to like chapter 17. And I did the majority of them on Wednesday this week, Wednesday afternoon. I even did one that is like about legendary monsters, which is where you fight the Marlboro right at the end. And I didn't have the proper build where like you fight like a bomb at the beginning, then you find a Thornberry, then you fight a Behemoth in the middle, then you fight a mix of a bomb and a Thornberry, and at the end you fight the Marlboro. I don't know how I was able to beat the Behemoth because I was reading a guy that you needed the barrier materia to withstand some of his insane attacks, and they recommended you use Barret because he also has kind of like steel skin, has a steel skin power that can help like withstand some of like the strong attacks. But I played it with Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa, and the Behemoth managed to down Cloud and Aerith. I just remained with Tifa and just threw her on Brill strength. I was able to beat him like in a way that was like, I cannot believe I pulled this off. And the same thing happened with me with the Marlboro, where it was like he kept poisoning me. I only had Cloud left, and I just kept like doing like brave attacks in a way that I was like so breathless, and I even got the trophy. The thing that happened after I beat that, I was hit by Travis Northup from IGN. He's still playing Destiny. He asked me if I wanted to help him with the cooperative campaign missions, that they separate 3 ones that they have to be done co-op because they have like raid-like mechanics, and if you complete all 3 of them you get the exotic. And he asked me, hey, do you want to help me? I was like, yeah, sure. And I immediately just jumped into it, like quit the game and jumped into Destiny because I'm used to Final Fantasy having a lot of excessive autosave. So I was like, yeah, no problem. I assumed since I got the trophy, the game recorded my progress with this challenge. I'll just hit it up. So then when the day after I played Destiny with him that night, that was spent until like 2 a.m. When I came back to 7 Rebirth and I put resume activity, it put me at the beginning of the 17th chapter where you do the VR things. I'm like, wait a second. And I saw so many chests that were in the way were not open. And then I got into challenges and it did not record my progress. Despite it giving me the trophy, like the progress of the individual challenges, the duo challenges, and the trio challenges against those monsters, they didn't give me that progress, and I wanted to scream at my pillow. Because I was like, I wasted so much time, I have the trophy to prove it. And now I have to do that all again, because then there's a final challenge where you have to do summon battles, one after the other. That I stopped doing it at the time, and that's why I had jumped to helped over in Destiny, because I needed, based on the guides that I was using, I needed to grind up a specific materia to their top level, and I had already started doing that, and that grind and that materia grind didn't like register at all. So that was like so deflating that obviously I had reattempted doing a lot of those challenges, and I got to do all of them except the one I got for the monsters. So I still have that one and the summoned ones, but it was like just such a like, you just imagine putting all that work and it was just for nothing. So that was such a huge setback that made me feel angrier about Remake than I usually am. I really like that game. I prefer Rebirth, but yeah, it's like I made the joke to Zach and Paul in our group chat. I'd be like, could Remake be the thing that cures me from my platinum trophy obsession? Because it's like gosh, doing all that work and then all of that didn't register. That's a good that's a good way to just how can I say this? That kind of like just deflate your excitement and kind of like make you just throw the towel. But I can sometimes be persistent. I've let myself simmer off like the frustration. I put myself just right now. I'm playing Elden Ring, obviously, so that may take later until I beat this DLC. If I end up beating, if that thing doesn't tell me and I just quit. But at least I've done the majority of those challenges again. I just need to do that animal one, and I'm gonna try to attempt it to do as the guy told me this time to see if it makes it easier. So that's all I have been playing, and can't wait to see what I come in with next week. Now, this would be a time where I would say press X for some news, but instead of just being news, this is just gonna be a recap of the Nintendo Direct that happened this Tuesday. And if I'm perfectly honest, did anything important in the news in the news business happened? Let me see. Just checking the Game Informer. Yeah, most of the news over like Game Informer, for example, are all like individual pieces of the Nintendo Direct. So yeah, just the Nintendo Direct for this week, and then like I may cover anything else for like next week. So oh wait, actually, Minecraft is finally getting a native PS5 version. Cool. Took them long enough. So enough of that. So yeah, let's talk about the Nintendo Direct. So obviously, one of the reasons why I wanted to have PJ on, because he's like obviously PJ is not as huge a gamer as I am, but he's like very particular about the things that he absolutely loves, which is Nintendo and Sega. So his was the one I wanted to have this conversation with, because I remember having that conversation like randomly. I called him during May, and we were kind of like just briefly talking about what were our thoughts about the Nintendo Direct, and kind of like the conventional wisdom was that because Nintendo originally was supposed to launch the Switch 2 or whatever they end up calling the successor of the Switch this year, and they delayed it to next year, then conventional wisdom would let you know that they're probably saving all their big guns for the launch of the next system. So everything else that may come out of the Switch, especially in a world where we're post Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and then the surprise release of Mario Wonder, you would wonder, pun intended, is like yeah, the barrel's empty. So we can see that the way that that they finish off the rest of this year for the Switch, and even like however many months we go through 2025 before we get a successor of the Switch, which is going to be Remaster Central, because it's like they're easy money, like just like Paper Mario has shown, and then Luigi's Mansion 2, which is coming next week. I'm going to read that in the upcoming releases. As you would know, is that being like, yeah, it's like the Nintendo audience has proven very receptive of receiving older games in remaster form for like preservation purposes, because this is now systems that are going to be backwards compatibility in perpetuity. So that's why a lot of people accept a lot of remasters. So everyone was like, oh yeah, Nintendo Direct will just be that, and that's okay. We know that unfortunate circumstances delayed the new system, so it's like they're gonna make do by just breaking the glass in case of emergency and pull out all these remasters. What Nintendo ended up doing instead is that, even though there were a few remasters in place, they announced like a bunch of stuff that specifically for some communities were like megaton announcements, in a way that Nintendo wins the surprise moment of the non-E3 Summer Game Fest time when it comes to like showcases, because obviously the Xbox showcase, I would say, even for my personal opinion, is still the strongest one, and statement of intent of they finally have like all the eggs are hatching, and the amount of content that they had in that showcase, on top of like more tangible gameplay shows of the games that you wouldn't expect to have, that paints a good picture of at least the immediate future of the Xbox brand, especially at a time where the Xbox brand is at such a low, with all the uncertainty of will it go multi-platform and all of that. That at the very least was like that showcase was such a huge shot of momentum that brand desperately needed. And then Nintendo were like, yeah, it's like, let's see, it's like this is gonna be a down year, and then Nintendo just came in like packing a thing that for people that love their Nintendo franchises, it was like a lot of people were saying this was the best presentation. I'm like, I don't think so for me personally, but I see why, and we're gonna go through some of those games now. So the first thing that they announced is Mario, the Mario and Luigi RPG saga, that a lot of people love all the way back to the GBA days for Superstar Saga and all that. It's actually coming back with a new entry with Mario and Luigi Brothership out on November 7th this year. What I find interesting is that in a year's time, Nintendo has basically served on the Switch 3 servings of the different styles of Mario RPGs. Obviously, we got the Mario RPG game from SNES remade last year, like in November time, and obviously we now got the Paper Mario 1000 Year Door remaster slash remake that came out last month, and now we got Mario and Luigi Brothership. So it's like someone made someone kind of made the point that probably what Nintendo is doing is that they are analyzing their RPG series, and they put these three out, and they want to see which one of the three does best, and maybe based on that data, they're gonna kind of go forward and be like, out of these three disparate RPG series, which is the one that we want to keep reinvesting. So I want to see how this new one does. Like, obviously it has like a different art style. A lot of people are saying it kind of looks a little cheap and all that. To me, doesn't look cheap as much as it does look stylized in a way that I would say the Mario RPG art style actually felt a little bit more generic for me, because it's like I feel like I have reached my quota of Mario games looking like New Super Mario Bros. And a lot of like what I played about the Mario RPG game like reminded me a lot of the art style, whereas Super Mario Bros. Wonder kind of like updated the art style into something a little bit more cheerful, colorful, and inventive that was like more refreshing to the eye for a Mario game. So in the screenshot, in some of the screens of what I saw for this new Mario and Luigi game is like a cell shade Mario in a way. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm curious. So this is out on November 7th. One of those surprises. Yeah, this is a new game and it's out this year. Then we got another look at the Nintendo World Championships NES edition. Obviously, this was not this is not a new announcement. This was randomly announced like a month or two ago as something that was gonna come out this summer. Basically, this is gonna like put different pieces from different NES games in challenge mode for like speed runs and all that. And I know a lot of people are excited to do that because I know the sense of competition, who's gonna beat the time for each person, is like something that's really appealing. I know Astro's Playroom at the launch of the PS5, one of the things that kept that game in rotation for many like journalists that I was following was that because they were friends with each other, the PS app would always kind of like notify them, hey, this person beat your speedrunning record. So a lot of people would then go in to try to beat that. So that sense of competition can be really cool. And with this being so many beloved NES games, I can imagine that could be like a pretty big hit when it comes in July 18th, especially because around that time, I don't know what else is coming in the Switch. I will have to look, but if there's something I learned is that the Switch audience can be really perceptive. A lot of that audience loves buying games. So then we got a game from Koei Tecmo called Fairy Tail 2. So I assume Fairy Tail is like a beloved franchise. Who knows? Or maybe like a franchise that has a little bit of history. So it's kind of like a turn-based RPG, or maybe our action RPG, with depending on kind of like how you look at it. And that is out on later this winter. So the Switch is such a great system for the portability factor. Is great for like JRPGs. So obviously that's one of those. So then another JRPG that was announced, and this was kind of like a big deal because this used to be only a mobile game made by the father of Final Fantasy and composed by the father of all Final Fantasy musics, Nobuo Uematsu, Fantasia. So Fantasia Neo Dimension is now finally making its way to not just Nintendo Switch, but also modern platforms. I think Fairy Tail is also other platforms. I could be wrong. And this is kind of like being done in conjunction with Creative Studio 3, which was formerly known as CBU 3, which is the studio that made Final Fantasy 14 and 16. And recently, Naoki Yoshida, the executive producer of that studio, had mentioned that he had a couple games in development outside just 16 PC port and 14 ongoing support. And I know one of those rumored things is that they're doing the Final Fantasy Tactics remake that a lot of people are super excited for, because Final Fantasy Tactics is like such a beloved tactics style game that has just not been available in the modern era for so long, and was in the Nvidia leak from a few years ago. And a lot of the things that have been in that Nvidia leak have all come true. So they're assisting with this. Is like this is special because after Hinobu Sakaguchi, I always mess up his first name, but or Hironobu Sakaguchi. This was one of the last official games that he worked on, and he had been mentioning that he's getting close to retirement, same as Nobuo Uematsu. Nobuo Uematsu, the composer, is like he's only doing like one or two songs for games now, instead of like composing like a full soundtrack. And this was one of the last things that he fully composed. So in an era where those two legends may be like getting ready to retire, and this game, a lot of people that played on mobile, one of the biggest praises and critiques that people were giving was like, this is so good, I don't want to keep playing this on a mobile phone. So the fact that it can finally make its way to like modern era, and it's like a straight up like turn-based RPG from like the masters, like from some of the kings of that genre, especially from yesteryear, is like, this was pretty momentous, and it's gonna be out this holiday. So that's actually pretty exciting. So, and me that I'm a new convert for the old style of RPGs where I used to not be after last year, I'm like, I definitely have my eyes on this one. So, Nintendo Switch Sports got an update, and that is gonna be basketball. That includes 2-on-2 matches, 3-point challenges, local and online matches, and there's gonna be free and out this summer. Obviously, Nintendo Switch Sports has been like a mild success for Nintendo. Obviously, like a lot of people love Nintendo, the Wii Sport. That came in bundled with the Wii all the way back then, and this was a purchase game. So a lot of people that had the nostalgia for a sport game. That's why they were receptive to this one, and they got it. So and they're still supporting it. So if you're still playing that, more power to you. And then they announced this like weird looking, like stylish, almost side scroller called Mio Memories in Orbit. That is coming out in 2025 for people that love art, but like artistic expression in their games. It's like, this is quite a look. You definitely have to look this one. Then we got Disney Illusion, a free update for Disney Illusion Island, the platformer that kind of has shades of Rayman Legends, especially with the co-op and all that came out last year that a lot of people love. So they got a new free update that same day. Then we got one of the funniest time console Switch exclusives that are coming out next year, Hello Kitty Island Adventure. From like what I remember looking at this when I would look at the direct, this looked like a Animal Crossing style Hello Kitty game. So if you have a daughter, or if Hello Kitty is still something that is kind of like in your vernacular, you get a Hello Kitty game timed exclusive for this Nintendo Switch. So that is out next year. And then in things that are kind of wacky, pun intended, we got Looney Tunes Wacky World of Sports that is out later this fall. That it's basically, what if you took the Mario Strikers formula or like that kind of sports game, but instead of being Mario characters, it's Looney Tunes characters. The Looney Tunes have been just out of the vernacular for so long. Even like the Coyote versus Acme movie that was supposed to like bring some of those characters back in a modern movie, because they have not been in anything modern in like freaking forever. It was just canned by the idiot fuckface that was David Zaslav. That I'm like, this weird that this is what Looney Tunes actually, like, if I'm not mistaken, I was like, when was Space Jam 2? Space Jam 2 was the last time like a bunch of these characters were like in a modern era, like featured in a modern day. But even then was like that was not just Looney Tunes. It was basically the entire like portfolio of WB in that movie. So it's like they have not had like a starring role, the Looney Tunes. They've been kind of like withering in the vine. So interesting that they're bringing that out, and it's out this fall. Will it be better than the sports games that Nintendo has been putting out? Who knows? So then we got another update coming to Among Us that same day. I don't remember exactly what was the update. Maybe like a new map and all that. But that was, I just kind of tuned out because it's like, Among Us is what it is. It's excellent for people. I love playing it. It's like, it's just not my kind of game. So that was there was a new update that same day on Tuesday. Then we got this like funny enough game that's also kind of like a sort of JRPG that's also sort of farming simulator called Farmagia, that a lot of people were like making a lot of fun of that name. That is out on November 1st, which I do find funny that Nintendo loves slotting farming simulator RPGs like Harvestella. Like a few years ago, they always used the first week of November. It's like, is November kind of like a harvest day? So I don't know. It's just a funny, such a funny coincidence. So yeah, Farmagia out on November 1st, and based on how it looks, it's like, I personally wouldn't play this, but it looks interesting enough for the weirdos that want to play it. The one thing that I was very excited for, though, this is one of the few new remasters that were announced in this direct. It's not the remaster I was expecting, but it's still one that I'm kind of happy it is, because I had been like debating on, man, I still have this one on Wii and I never really beat it, and I do like its sequel that came out on Wii U and remastered on the Switch. And I do have the 3DS version, but it's kind of like a worse version of it. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country Returns, the 2010 game made by Retro Studios. They got to make Metroid Prime after Metroid Prime 3. It's coming out next year on January 16th. So that's a really fun platform. I remember playing a lot of it when my dad bought it for me. And GoldenEye, the Wii version of GoldenEye, of the GoldenEye remake at the same time. And I remember playing this with my brother. And I don't think we ever got to the end, because it can be like really hard. Donkey Kong games can be really hard, but it's something that I have really fun memories of. And me, because I never finished it, that's why I can still hold off on finishing Tropical Freeze, on top of the fact that Tropical Freeze is effing hard. So That thing has 80 levels available, and it's going to be out on January 16th. I'm definitely going to be all over this. Then we finally got another full look at the recently re-revealed Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake that had been kind of like withering at the vine also, announced so long ago by Square Enix, in a way that in a way that a lot of people are like, did this get canceled? Was this one of the casualties of all the cancellations you did like before your fiscal year that made you lose catastrophic amounts of money that made you a multi-platform developer? But no, this one was announced and they were still continuing. Obviously, for people that love the art style of Octopath Traveler, it's like getting that in Dragon Quest that has like a more distinct visual style to it. Obviously, R.I.P. Akira Toriyama, that was pretty primordial and what made like Dragon Quest so visually unique. They announced that this HD 2D remake is coming out this fall on November 14th, and obviously that's gonna. Before, I think it was just announced for Switch and like PS4, if I'm not mistaken. But then, like when it was revealed, it switched to just being PS5, a PS5 game, also coming to Xbox Series X and S, and also the Switch. So this is one of those games that like Square Enix is gonna shotgun blast across everything instead of like stagger the releases like they used to do, as they're trying to like eke more profitability. And then they announced that for people that were like, why are they starting with Dragon Quest 3? Well, it turns out that Dragon Quest 3, from like what I understand, is kind of like the actual beginning of the story, and the first two games are kind of like prequels. And lo and behold, they also announced that they're doing HD 2D remakes of 1 and 2 that are coming out in 2025. And that there is, according to Gene Park, there is a value of starting with 3 and then doing Dragon Quest 1 and 2, kind of like a Star Wars prequels thing, to kind of see where how you got there, kind of thing. So this was the one that I wanted to talk to PJ about, because he's such a Dragon Quest stan. Like, he's so insufferably a huge fan of Dragon Quest that I know that he was like being like, I saw him on Twitter. He was like over the moon excited for this. So I'm definitely gonna try it. I definitely like wanna. This feels like not me, that I'm more open-minded for our traditional JRPGs. I definitely want to try it, especially if it looks like this. So then we got another look at Funko Fusion, this Funko game that looks kind of bad. If I'm perfectly honest, that's out on September 13th. I would say Funko Fusion was probably the low point of this direct, which has been pretty strong overall at this point. So yeah, that's out on September 13th. And then we got another brief look at Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which obviously this was a remaster already announced last year, and that is out next week from when we're recording. So I'm definitely excited for that one. I never really beat Luigi's Mansion 3 just because I'm always really distracted by other stuff from other consoles, and I like stacking my games over on the Switch. But I also was one that never beat the second one, and I love the first one. So this allows me to, at least, if this comes out, depending on how I'm with Elden Ring, I foresee myself, if this holds my interest, maybe do like a run of playing 2 and 3 back to back. Who knows? I know PJ is a bigger fan of this one than 3, and he reviewed 3 when we used to have a website for this channel. And he liked it back then, but he had cooled off on it later. So I think Luigi's Mansion 2 is like the better game. I still love the vibes of the first one the best, because it's such a unique launch game for the GameCube. So yep, that's out on June 27th. Then they announced a free-to-play game called The New Denpa Man that's coming out on July 22nd as a Switch time console exclusive. Not much to say about that. Then they announced a Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, which is like I know that Metal Slug has been like weird in that obviously there's the traditional arcade Metal Slugs, and then there's the tactics game that was announced a long time ago, and now there's this one that looks like a turn-based RPG, which is like really interesting for Metal Slug, for like a series that I'm just so used to button mashing the shooting button when I used to play at our arcade. So that was out later that same day. I still haven't seen it. I still haven't played it much, and I haven't heard many people talk about it, but it was interesting. That was kind of like a shadow drop. But I was surprised at a shadow drop, because I don't remember a lot of people. I don't think this was announced beforehand, so this was kind of like a surprise reveal, but I could be wrong. Then Darkest Dungeon 2, which has been like this interesting kind of turn-based RPG with like it's really creepy art style, that the first game came out all the way back in like 2015, which was like really good. Its sequel is now out on Switch on July 15th. I think this game already was on other systems, but I could be wrong also. So then we got a few additions to the Switch Online system, which they have not had meaningful additions recently. But at least the ones here, at least for the GBA, to me they are. I would say that they're meaningful. Like, for example, we get the A Link to the Past 4 Swords, which was like, if you played A Link to the Past in the GBA, I think it also came with this mode to play with the 4 links. If you had like the link cable and were able to play it, and obviously with the Switch Online, you're able to simulate that with others, because they can simulate you playing locally with someone with their online with their online system. That's how GoldenEye was able to have online, whereas the Xbox version didn't, because they didn't want to create servers. So. 4 sources there, but more exciting for me was the announcement that Metroid Zero Mission was finally coming to GBA. When originally Metroid Fusion was one of the first ones that came to the GBA version of the Switch Online system, which was so exciting because Metroid Fusion is my favorite Metroid game ever, even with Dread and Prime there. And I'm glad that it was like, again, I mentioned earlier, kind of like, the frustrating thing about Nintendo is like they're all like gathering all this collection of the series together, and they're still missing key games. But it's like when you see these movies, it's like they're just kind of like they're just grabbing us by the balls at this point. They're just they're kind of like just briefly teasing us and kind of like drip feeding us these games as they're kind of like building the full collection for it to be all in one system. And while Metroid had been like so MIA for so long, I was getting Dread, and then eventually seeing Fusion being added, Metroid Prime Remaster coming back, and now Zero Mission is like a lot of those games, and also Metroid 2, Return of Samus, the Game Boy version, not the remake that came to 3DS, that has the same art style as Metroid Dread by the same developer. It makes me happy to see like slowly like Metroid is like eking its way back into having more of its older games kind of like available on modern hardware. And the thing I love about Zero Mission is that Zero Mission is the definitive way for you to play the original Metroid. It is the exact same story. It's basically the exact same story of that first game, but in remade form and with like some addition at the end, and has all the quality of life elements of Metroid Fusion. Maybe a little less hand-holding, which is good for it, because it's like if Metroid Fusion was hand-holding you almost the entire way, that's a good way to get you acclimated to the Metroid experience. Zero Mission is like that with slightly less hand-holdiness, but still a lot of its advancements. And I'm glad that it was there. I got to see former EC Allies, now LSM member Brad Ellis stream the entire game again, just this past week, as he was leading to the Elden Ring launch. And I'm like, I'm glad a lot of that game holds up. There's a few BS spots near the end that he was like struggling with, but yeah, it's still a pretty solid game. I'm glad more Metroid games are coming. And then they finally added the N64 Mature 17 Switch Online, which is kind of like separating games that are going to be M for mature, because there's like parental options that are on the Switch, and two of those notable M-rated games that were on N64 were Turok Dinosaur Hunter, which I remember having. That was a game that my dad loved to play a lot, and I played briefly, and then like there was a time where my mom was like, "You're not playing bloody stuff when you're young." So it's like that is now out on Switch. What's funny though is that there is a remastered version of this Turok game already available for purchase. So it's interesting that they added the N64 worse version into this thing, but there's some people that are like purists and kind of would probably prefer playing it that way. Then obviously there's they also added Perfect Dark, which is the spiritual sequel to GoldenEye 007, and that has been available in remake form in Rare Replay over on Xbox, and because they did a remake of that original game for Xbox 360 all the way back in 2010. So that has been available over on Xbox. I don't think it had online play, so this one also has online play that the original one didn't, because they didn't want to pay for service, and they do like their weird way to do like a split screen online. I know that this Perfect Dark port has been like apparently it launched really bad on the Nintendo Switch. Apparently there's like this blur effect when you're like dizzy that just doesn't go away, that makes it kind of like unplayable. So maybe they'll eventually patch it if people remember that some of the games that they launched at the Nintendo 64 thing back in like 2021 didn't launch strong either, but they eventually patched it. I know that Ocarina of Time was like had a legendarily bad lag in that game, so that lag made it unbearable for some people. But eventually they fixed it, so hopefully they do that with Perfect Dark. So they're still adding games way slower than I want, but there's also the fact that the N64 library is so small that they can stretch that to its limits. So my only hope is that eventually, because they're adding rare stuff, that we circle back to Banjo-Tooie, which is also on the Xbox 360. because both Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo 2 kind of got like some remastered form, and eventually we get Donkey Kong 64 over there. That was like one of the last N64 games that I bought, I remember. Then we got another kind of like asymmetrical, sort of like turn-based RPG called Phantom Brave: The Lost Hero that was announced and it's out in 2025. But then the most important and biggest like pop that I saw for this Nintendo Direct was this announcement by Capcom. The Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics, which includes 7 games, which includes the fighting game X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, and then the 2 GOATs, Marvel vs. Capcom 1, Clash of Superheroes, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2, A New Age of Heroes, and also the Beat 'em Up the Punisher game. Obviously, like the biggest headliner of this collection is Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is like GOAT level status fighting game for whatchamacallit, for the fighting game community. It's like this was always on Evo. This was kind of like a normal on Evo, like a normal fixture on Evo. A lot of people just love the technicality and the roster of this game in a way in a way that they didn't the future Marvel vs. Capcom games that happened. Even though some people like those, but the liking of that series has been less and less, and MVC2 has been the thing that people have been really loving. And this game was like a victim of the Disney vs. Marvel of it all, and because of that happening, the only modern way, like the most modern way that this was available was the 360 version, and eventually that version got delisted in like 2011. So there was like no way to play this other than you finding like super expensive versions and like maybe an arcade, like a $500 arcade. That's how you could find it modernly, if you could like cop that out, or find it like through the black market or emulating it. There was like no official release, and now this brings this and all these other Marvel fighting games that are like so beloved in a modern collection that has all of Capcom's bells and whistles. And Capcom is so excellent at bringing a lot of these collections to life in a modern platform that like helps with that game preservation. And you always should go watch Maximilian Dude, who was one of the leaders of the free MDC2 movement that has been going for years. Watch him pop. It's why you're not gonna have a bigger smile than seeing him finally all his efforts paid off. Like that was like me, that I'm not as huge into fighting games. I like a few of them. Like I really love the love some communities can get, and seeing them, when I see them get hyped like this, is like it's just heartwarming. So I'm glad that this happened, and it's coming out later this year in 2024. I bet a lot of people are gonna buy the physical edition of this collection in case that licenses get weird again and it just doesn't become available, because the 360 version was just a 360 arcade version, so there was no physical version of that. So this thing has been like long gone, so it's finally back. Then they finally announced a new Mario Party game called Super Mario Party Jamboree. So this is more like a direct sequel to the Super Mario Party game that came out in 2018. Obviously we got the Mario Party Superstars, kind of like the collection of all the best minigames of all the other Mario Party games, like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. I don't remember when it was, or a year ago. Time has no meaning for me. So it looks like a bigger scale Mario Party. This is a game that I have to talk with my sister if she wants to get it, because I kind of like also do account share with her, and I like playing Mario Party with her, and I like playing that with people around me, but I just don't have as many people that I play locally as I used to have. So this doesn't become like a must play for me, but this would be something that I would consider with my sister. So it's gonna have 110 minigames with online game modes up to 20 players. So like the scale of this thing is like blowing up, and it's it's going and this is out on October 17th. Then the next big announcement was the fact that instead of us getting Wind Waker and instead of us getting Wind Waker and the Twilight Princess HD as a lot of people were hoping for, they announced a new Zelda game, and they announced it in a Link's Awakening style, like art style. But that wasn't just it. It's like, this is not just a new Zelda game. It's like, it's a new Zelda game where you play as Zelda for the first time in history. That was like such a mind-blowing moment that it's taken this long for us to finally get a Zelda game where you finally play as the title character of the Legend of Zelda slogan. So kind of like the details for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is Link has vanished. Zelda's the protagonist. Is played in a top-down perspective similar to Link's Awakening and the Link Between Worlds, Link to the Past game. And Zelda kind of has an ability to recreate items and also recreate monsters to progress through the game. So they're giving us a Link's Awakening style game with immersive sim elements. So where you can kind of like manipulate stuff, kind of like also. If you remember Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, where you can manipulate stuff, they're adding that to a top-down Zelda, so it's like an interesting, different way to approach the Zelda game. So yeah, that was announced, and it's gonna be out on September 26th alongside a Switch Lite edition, which I tell people that Switch Lite looks hot. It's all gold, similar gold to the one that they did for the OLED for Tears of the Kingdom. So it's like that is gonna be very tempting for those people who love collecting their Switches. And while I'm still personally bummed out that Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD are still not a thing, this is still a new Zelda announcement. And it's so different. It's not a Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom style. Obviously, I've said many times how much I think Breath of the Wild is overrated, but I love Tears of the Kingdom. I still prefer older school Zeldas. So the fact that this is kind of like a top-down Zelda game, but that they're doing this thing where you actually now play a Zelda, that to me is like so interesting and so fresh that I'm like, I get to slightly forgive at this point in time them not doing the remasters I want, because they're still stuck over there on the Wii U. So yeah, that's on September 26th. Then we got another look at Just Dance, the 2025 edition. It's weird that Just Dance was not anywhere at the UB Forward from last week. But yeah, this is just more Just Dance, and they showed a little bit of some songs by Ariana Grande, In Your Feet, Natasha, and Zia. So it's like you probably already heard a lot of those songs. Like usually, whatever is hip at the time is gonna show up here in Just Dance. On top of them doing the membership that allows you to play a lot of the older songs from like older games. So and that membership usually also tends to like bring newer songs to an old game. So it's a weird, interesting pricing model that they have over there at the at Ubisoft for Just Dance, where it's like they know there's gonna be people that just want to buy the new game every time, but then there's people that are a little bit more savvy that they would pay for the subscription to kind of have new stuff kind of coming in and out for an older version of that game. So yeah, that's out sometime later this year, even though it has the 2020. That's the thing, like this has the naming convention that it has the year that is the next year, but it comes out the year before. So that is this year's version of this game. Then we got another look at the Lego Horizon Adventures game that was announced at Jeff Keighley's summer showcase for Summer Game Fest. Everyone was wondering if Nintendo was even gonna acknowledge the fact that this is a game made by PlayStation that's coming out to their platform, and this was low-key a very historic moment where a PlayStation Studios game that is not MLB The Show showed up at a Nintendo thing with a clear like PlayStation Studios logo kind of like there in the corner. Plus the Switch audience is like so receptive for like for Lego games, and this is one that I'm so curious out to see how it turns out. Like I can't think of a game with a cast of characters more forgettable than Horizon, other than besides Aloy. And even Aloy, the main protagonist, is like so it's like so forgettable. But I feel like the Lego coding may give that cast a lot of charm and may make them like more memorable than in like the main games. So such a weird game that I'm glad is happening. And at least for play in the PlayStation side of things, it's this and Astrobot as like two games that they're kind of trying to do the good old college try to appeal for younger people, because they have been so in the throat of just being like the serious console. So they're learning that they need a little bit more variety if they want to like grow their audience more. So then the Stray, which is the cat game that was revealed back in 2020 for PS5 as a limited time PS5 game that eventually made its way to Xbox, is now coming to Switch this holiday. I feel Stray was a wildly overrated game. It was fine in parts, but it's like the fact that it was nominated for Game of the Year never will cease to amaze me. You want to know what a weak year was? Go back to 2022. The fact that they had to like scrape the bottom of the barrel and they had to put Stray when there were even better indie games that they could have pulled for the 6 games that Jeff Keighley put in the Game Awards, Big 6. So We got another look at Tales of the Shire, which is out this holiday. This is the Animal Crossing style game that's about playing as a hobbit in the Shire. That looks pretty bad, but it may be charming for some people that love that love kind of like a more less mature style of Lord of the Rings adventure. I wonder how this does. That's gonna be available on the eShop on holiday 2024. Then we got the next Ace Attorney collection with Investigations collection that's confirmed for September 6th. I think this is gonna make it because there's Ace Attorney and then there's Phoenix, right? Maybe they're one of the same or not, but a lot of this former Ace Attorney games have all made it to modern to a modern system now. So this is the next one is out on September 6th. Romance and Saga, another like a classic JRPG from Square Enix portfolio. That is releasing Romance and Saga 2 out on October 24th. So Romance and Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven out on October 24, 2024 for people that love their turn-based RPGs. I'm glad that Square Enix is still kind of cooking a bunch of those, despite like the news that made it seem that they were gonna be doing less of their unique stuff and more focusing on like the big stuff, kind of like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Kingdom Hearts. So I'm glad that they announced that, and then I think they announced like a game from the Danganronpa people in between here. I'm looking at the Warrior 64 list, and he said he lost connection right for the game before this. So I assume there was that game also, which was not as important as anything else. And then finally, we concluded the Nintendo Direct with a confirmation that Metroid Prime 4 is still real. We got to see gameplay of it. It looks like Metroid Prime. It's still looking really highly pristine, running at 60 frames, like with a lot of detail. A lot of people have been like wondering if what we saw was actually a Switch 2 game, because it looked like there's a certain pristine to it that for a late generation Switch game was like maybe too good to be true. But then I go back to how good the Metroid Prime remaster was with like the reworked textures, reworked visuals, the reworked like kind of like being able to like work that engine on the Switch for it to run at 1080p 60. That I'm like, it wouldn't surprise me like what they did with Metroid Prime Remaster was kind of like a primer to prepare the Switch to be able to run that game the same way whenever Metroid Prime 4 happens. The thing is that by them putting just a 2025 release date for Metroid Prime 4, now there's the scuttlebutt that this Metroid Prime game may be the generational cross-gen launch game, similar to how Twilight Princess was both a Wii and GameCube game, and how Breath of the Wild was both a Wii U game and Switch game at launch. So I wouldn't mind it, because it's like if this is kind of like a crossover game, it's like then it's like this already is like for a company that's not about going for the high fidelity visuals and all of that. They're more about like their style. That's why like that makes them so profitable and successful. Metroid Prime is like the only time that they allow themselves to indulge more in like in more visually inventive stuff. If you remember all the way back in Metroid Prime on 2002 on GameCube was probably the best looking game that year on all three systems. It was rare to see to have Nintendo lead in the technical side in around that time. So this being Retro Studios that is working on this, which is funny that the original version of this game that was announced in 2017 was not being worked at Retro Studios, and then in 2019 they announced that they were restarting the development and giving it to Retro. So it's been 5 years since Retro took over the project, and it definitely looks like another one of their games that they made, obviously with a little bit more set piece moments and cinematics, and you could see like at the very least, like if you've played a Metroid Prime game, it definitely looks like a Metroid Prime game that you haven't had in 17 years. Since 2007, which is wild. So that's gonna be, or 18 years probably, because it's like 2007 to 2025. That's probably 18 years. Yeah, it's been a long time since a mainline Metroid Prime game has released after 2007's Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. So yeah, that's how they closed out the Direct. It looked really good. I would say definitely like I was talking with my buddy Sebastian, who we all know is like just a negative Nancy when it comes to Nintendo. He said like, oh yeah, everything that I saw about Metroid Prime 4 just reminds me of the Metroid Prime Remaster that I play. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of understand that. You also have to understand that there has not been a new Metroid game in 18 fucking years. So that's why it's hype that to see that it's actually real, and it's like gonna like continue the tradition. of what Metroid Prime is, and they gave it the subtitle Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. So that's continuing the tradition that every subsequent sequel for Metroid Prime had a subtitle. So obviously Metroid Prime 2 was Echoes, Metroid Prime 3 was Corruption, and Metroid Prime 4 is Beyond. And there's also the DS one, Metroid Prime Hunters, which is so funny. A lot of people pointed out that one key shot of this trailer features a character from Metroid Prime Hunters. So it's like, that's so that's so funny to think that. And one of the few games that are kind of lost in time, because I don't know how they would be able to put out Metroid Prime Hunters in modern, like in a modern era, because of the way that game was kind of like made. They would have to be like full on remade. It's so funny that an element of that has been carried through in the Metroid Prime series, because this character I think also showed out on Metroid Prime 3, if I'm not mistaken. I last played that game in 2021 when I went on a Metroid binge. So Metroid Prime 4 is real. I wouldn't say it was the most exciting announcement. I think the Zelda and NBC news were more exciting for me personally, but it's like a lot of people have been wondering what had happened to Metroid Prime 4 after they announced they had announced that they were reworking it, and then in 2021 they at the direct they specifically mentioned, we know you're still waiting for news on Metroid Prime 4, but we're still working on it, but have this. And that's when they announced Dread. So Metroid is back, baby, and I'm so happy. And that was the Nintendo Direct, a really, really, really solid list of games. And to me, definitely the second best showcase of the season behind Xboxes. The best thing that I've been seeing about like the discourse that's been happening has been like how much people have put a target on Sony for being like, why the fuck did you not show up? Like, or what you showed up with that Nintendo Direct was so anemic compared to the two other players that showed up to play. I have kind of like been saying it. To me, the most frustrating thing about like being in the PlayStation ecosystem, and I'll keep reiterating it, is that I hate that they're being rewarded for their behavior. They act like they don't need to appease their audience. They take their audience for granted because the console is just selling. And no matter what they do, the thing is just like inertially selling in a way that makes like the audience feel for like it's taking the audience for granted. It makes them, it puts them in such a cocky position because they're like, nah, we don't need to do anything. We're just winning. And I really hate when a company behaves like that, because it's like the only reason you got there was because you put up the work, and it just sucks that then it's like, because it's the equivalent of the my job here is done meme, even though it's like they've been still doing stuff. I mean, like to be fair to PlayStation, they are the company that has been putting out a lot of new games this year. Obviously not from first party, but they have put their logo. They're polishing those games, so it's like they're still putting out stuff. They got the third party exclusives that are basically big, like Rebirth. So it's like, it's not like there has been nothing this year. It's only nothing if you only care about a specific kind of game. But then at the same time, it's like I'm glad that I'm really hoping this next quarter for Xbox is kind of like you feel something different, because I saw a level of positivity for Xbox, especially after this last showcase, despite the fact that a lot of those games were already announced. But they're kind of like the idea that they have been putting all this work, and now the X are finally hatching this. All those announcements feels like they're getting close to being a reality, and they're finally gonna get a cadence going. I need that heat. I absolutely need that heat. And even Nintendo, who could have easily just phoned this year in, look at everything that they still announced. So it's like, this is such an anti-Nintendo move, because I am so used to the last few years of a Nintendo console as we're preparing for the next Nintendo console to be so bad, and this is the complete opposite. There's like so much that they're putting out that it's like it's light years ahead from how it used to be. And I think what reminds me a lot is that the handhelds never had that problem. Even the transitions from handheld to handheld always had a lot of games before the release of the handheld. Is the consoles that always suffered, and because they consolidated console and handheld into one with the Switch, now we're seeing like more support happening for like the console, quote unquote, than we usually get. So that's why I'm like I'm really glad that a lot of people are like pointing out and like trying to put that heat on Sony, because obviously this is like we don't have to say anything, was like a remnant from the Jim Ryan era. And now that we have like new CEOs, I'm really hoping that they're getting a vibe check and understanding that remaining cocky and not wanting to say anything could like really like turn the tide. And I really want the tide to turn, because it's like, it's just so boring being over on the PlayStation side and feeling like you're not they don't care But they literally they act like they don't care about you, even though they kind of do, because they're still giving you games. There's still so much you can play on that console. But I miss the time where the three of them could come in and play and feel like they all needed to fight for your enjoyment. That's like that's what made everything like feel cooler, even though that also created console wars. But then at the same time, it's like I don't like companies that don't that take their audiences for granted, because it's like it's just a level of I wouldn't even call it greed, but it's just a level of cockiness that that eventually leads to downfalls. And I'm just glad that I'm just seeing kind of like all these positive vibes coming out of Nintendo and Xbox, because now pressure's on. Obviously, Sony has made a habit of speaking 3 times a year. I've noted that. So it's not like they're not talking. It's just that they don't talk at all beyond that time. That makes it feel like they don't talk. So there's still a lot of people that allege that they allege that that the reason why everything is quiet is because PS5 Pro is real and they're saving all their guns for that. Let me remind you that when the PS4 Pro was revealed in 2016, the showcase it was revealed on was pretty bad. And there wasn't barely any new announcements there. But the big difference was that when the PS4 Pro was announced, just at E3 that same year, Sony put out the mother of all showcases for that generation, where they revealed their entire slate. That was the one that they had the orchestra going, where God of War was revealed and all that. It was still one of the most hype showcases that ever happened. So it's like they had already announced stuff, so they had nothing to really announce for their hardware reveal. So maybe that's kind of like the difference, that they had been waiting for the chips to fall for them to showcase this new hardware, and this time they're gonna like mix the hardware with like new games, because there is not really any big tentpole game besides Astrobot, and the rumor is that Astrobot is gonna be out before the PS5 Pro is even revealed. So it's like there is like no tentpole to like accompany this new console with. So they might have to show a roadmap, be like, here's why you want to upgrade to this new unnecessary, I would say, because the PS5 has barely, like, the power of the PS5 has not been fully tapped yet. Here's this new unnecessary upgrade, and here's like the slate of games coming soon. Who knows? I know there's been like talk that maybe like what we're seeing with Astrobot is whatchamacallit, kind of like the new MO. Obviously there were rumors that they had been working on this and it was kind of leaking, but the state of play was announce and then out in 3 months. Is that the new MO? Who knows? We also know that Sony recently had to cancel a shit ton of live service games. So maybe those were the games that were supposed to kind of start fill up the calendar. Obviously, the few that have survived were Concord and Fair Games. Concord coming in really soon. A lot of people hate it already. It's not a good start there. But it's like maybe they canceled even more stuff that should have been like worthy being showing, and we're kind of like feeling and seeing that. But I want PlayStation to still keep feeling the heat. I want to keep seeing those op-eds attacking them for being like, why are you not showing up? It's like I want that sentiment to still showing up, because it's like because the worst thing that I want is cocky PS3 Sony again, and it's already feel like we're there already, and they're at a 10 because they're winning, and they're just winning by inertia. So I'm really happy with the showcase that happened, and look forward to see like if Sony eventually responds. I'm glad that at least a lot of their fan bases are feeling like anxiety, despite the fact that they have stuff to play and upcoming. But that's just the bad PR game that Sony's just playing on the PS5 generation. The PS5 generation sucks in that regard. So happy for Nintendo, happy for Xbox, glad for this last 2 showcases. So with that concludes what would have been the news section of this week's episode of the Xbox, and let me read you the releases for the week of the week of June 23rd to June 29th. So writing this down. So on June 25th, we're getting Cozy Grove Camp Spirit for iOS and Android, Riven Remake for Quest 3, Quest 2, PC and Mac, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble for Switch, and Until Then, not Until Dawn, Until Then for PS5 and PC. I need to see what the heck is this. What is this Until Then, the game? So it's for Polychroma Games. It's an adventure game. Okay, interesting. So, and then on June 27th, we get Luigi's Mansion 2 HD for the Switch. We got Neo Sprint for PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Switch, and PC on June 27th. And we get the Chia, the game that was on PS5 last year. I don't know if it's already on Xbox, but coming out to Switch on June 27. I did not like that game, but I'm glad that it's being proliferated more. I know it won like indie darling game of the year, the Game Awards last year. I was like, oh, cool. So, and then we got Spy X Anya Operation Memories for PS5, PS4 to Switch on June 28th. And that's also an adventure game from Bandai Namco. Don't know what else that is. The art style definitely looks like anime fan service for me. So, and out of these games, obviously, I mentioned earlier in the show, like I'm interested for Luigi's Mansion 2. I want to see if I immediately play it, if Elden Ring hasn't kicked me in the ass and left me and dropped me. So we'll see on that, about that. But it's like we're being really well served this year, I tell you. It's like I still have no complaints, and I cannot wait to do like eventually when Paul makes his eventual return to the podcast. I was talking with him recently. We were playing Gears of War 2 online, and we were just kind of chatting about life, and he is about to find a new job after he's been laid off for quite a bit. And some prospects are looking promising, and he may be able to be back like in that August time where we mentioned. And I'm hoping that whenever he's back, we kick it off with what are our most anticipated games for the rest of the year, now that we have a better idea like what's coming. Obviously, Gamescom's happening on August 21st to the 25th, so we might have an even bigger idea, a bigger and better idea of what's coming soon. Sorry. In the immediate term, and also kind of like within the first half of the year before we get to the Game Awards, which is again Winter Games Showcase. So fuck the awards ceremony, but yay to the announcement that makes it feel like an E3. So can't wait to like see and start kind of like mapping out what's rest for 2024, and then what's looking like an absolutely insane, even more insane 2025 than 2023 I ever dare to look. So. And with that, we have reached the conclusion to this week's episode of the X Button. You can go find me at _Drew on Twitter /X, at Alejandro Segovia 93 at Instagram /Threads, and my written content at thecriticalcorner.com, where you can find my old stuff, and seasongaming.com, where you can find my newer stuff. You can find my reviews for this year for The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Skull and Bones, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16 The Rising Tide, TMNT Mutant Arcade, and Stellar Blade. And we'll see what my next review will be. I had committed to Paper Mario and wouldn't know what happened. So, but thankfully, I wasn't given a code for that, because if not, then I had been in real trouble if I had stopped playing. So, but yeah. And with that, yeah, that concludes this week's episode. It's been like a rainy season over at my country. I've been like locked in. That's why I'm wearing a sweater in June of all days. But yeah, stay safe if you're in a place where you're getting hit by rains. Enjoy the summer, as we're getting the summer solstice has already happened. So it should probably be getting hotter now in some places. Who knows with how weird weather is nowadays. Enjoy the litany of games that have come out this year or on sale now that you can play. Sometimes go touch of grass if it allows you, and press X to play. See y'all later.